Reviews and Views, where I discuss comic news and the media that they inspire. First off, a little bit of old news. At a media event around the beginning of March, CEO Kevin Tsujihara had this to say about the differences between his movies and Marvel's movies. And I quote, "The worlds of DC and Marvel are very different. They're steeped in realism and they're a little bit edgier than Marvel's movies." Really, so the upcoming movie Batman vs. Superman, which stars an alien that gets his powers from the yellow sun, as well as an ancient Amazonian warrior goddess, and a rich white guy that runs around dressed as a bat beating people up, that's steeped in realism. We're also talking about the same movie that recently announced the introduction of Aquaman, as played by Jason Momoa. Yes, Aquaman, the underwater ruler of Atlantis who communicates with aquamarine life via telepathy. Yes, very much well steeped in realism. Now, while I do appreciate that WB CEO is trying to put his own stamp on these movies to make sure that they stand out from Marvel's movies and compete with them, these are superhero movies. You really can't use realism when talking about them. To quote Inigo Montoya, "You use that word so much, I honestly don't think you know what it really means." Recently, Frank Cho drew a fan art variant cover for Spider-Gwen, which clearly referenced the Manara variant cover of Spider-Woman, with the additional image of Spider-Man off in the corner looking up into what must be Spider-Gwen's crotch and saying, "Whoa, deja vu." Now, obviously, this image is in incredibly bad taste, as it sexually objectifies what is a teenage girl, and a character who's most well known for simply being Spider-Man's first major girlfriend who was killed by the Green Goblin. The artist on the Spider-Gwen comic series, Robbie Rodriguez, really did not like it, and told Frank Cho as much. In fact, this is Robbie Rodriguez's reply when he found out about this cover. "Here's my take on the Frank Cho sketch cover. You're drawing dirty pics of one of my kids. Be lucky you're not around me." Robbie went on Facebook to elaborate that this was not a physical threat, but that he still stands behind the tweet 100%. He then went on to talk about how superhero comics and comics in general are reaching more and more people, and that we just don't need this kind of stupid, shallow cheesecake art, which just seems to be more indicative of a bros-only club. Frank Cho, after seeing all the criticism of his cover, went on to make this response. Yes, ladies and gentlemen, this is the reply of a mature professional. As for my view on this, these images show that Frank Cho simply doesn't understand, or that he simply doesn't care about why these images were offensive, angering, and annoying to several people, myself included. There are some complex issues out there, systematic issues of sexism with regards to women and how they are portrayed in the media. The portrayal of women, especially through the lens of superhero comics, can be especially problematic when we take a look at the industry on a whole, especially when we talk about how they are treated, how they are more victims and cheesecake art and just pretty things to look at instead of substantial characters. Now, things have been getting better over the last couple decades, and I really do hope that things do continue to improve. As for Frank Cho himself, well, here's the truth. Frank Cho drew those comics. Frank Cho decided to put those images up on the internet, so Frank Cho has to live with the criticisms that he receives, regardless of if he likes it or not. And in recent news, a teaser image of Jared Leto as the Joker was released, as he's going to have some involvement in the upcoming Suicide Squad pilot. And what image do they reference? well, what comic do they reference? It's the goddamn fucking Killing Joke again. I think we can firmly establish that DC Comics has a fetish for referencing the Killing Joke. A garbage comic from 30 years ago that the writer himself, Alan Moore, just hates. I don't understand it. Of all the ways to show the Joker's involvement, to show Jared Leto as the Joker, you chose to reference this comic. I don't understand it. Why? It makes no sense. Barbara Gordon, from all that I've heard, has no involvement with the Suicide Squad pilot. So why reference a comic wherein she's crippled and it's heavily implied that she's also sexually assaulted by the Joker? I don't know. Hopefully, as DC Comics makes their move from New York to the West Coast, they can leave this behind in those old empty offices. I'm Triple J. That's all I got left to say. Take care.